Hey there, welcome to Hobie on YouTube. Let's take a look at Copperheads again, specifically Boker Copperheads, because I have a couple of new ones there in the lineup to show off, and also because Boker has stated that they will no longer be making this pattern and several other traditional American patterns entirely in their Zolligan factory anymore. Now, they're still going to make and sell the traditional series knives, but those knives are mostly made in China from Chinese components. They are given just enough assembly and finishing in Germany to earn a German shield. But nowhere on those knives will it say Zolligan. So yeah, two-bladed copperheads like we see here on the table, two-bladed trappers, canoes, three-bladed stockmans, four-bladed Congress knives. Those will no longer be made in Zolligan. And I guess as collectors, at least for now, we can move those over to the history book. Before turning the camera on to make this video, I tried again to do some more research on the origin of the Copperhead pattern, but I really didn't find any new information. And it's interesting to note that my knife Bible, Levine's Guide to Knives and Their Values, doesn't even mention the Copperhead. It's not in the pattern index. There's not a picture of a Copperhead in the whole book. I do know, however, they date back to the early 1900s, even though there were earlier knives from France and Germany with similar bolsters that give the Copperhead its name. Here in the United States, case knives had their pattern 49 back before their tested era of the 1920s. So maybe we can say here in the U.S. that originated with case before the 1920s. I do know, however, that Boker introduced their Copperhead pattern in 1994 during the 125th anniversary. And I get that information from the excellent Boker book, Boker, 2 Centuries and 2 Countries, Representing One Name in Cutlery Excellence by Neil Punchard and Ricky Ray. That's a great book. I encourage you to go get it if you're a Boker fan. I'll put the link to how you can go get your own copy in the description box below. But apparently, according to the book, Boker's Copperhead was really just a downsized version of their American Folding Hunter, which they introduced in 1954. That was the 2020 pattern when it had 2 blades. This is a single blade anniversary version. I think the single blade 2020s were originally 2020/1s, and then after 1975 they were simply called 1010s. But you can see a lot of similarities in the frame shape. You've got the same copperhead shaped bolster, the same curved tapered end here, swell center. Very, very similar. All right, so these are the 2 new ones that I have, and let's take a look at this one in red bone. I've got one in green bone and red bone, and I believe those were among the last that they made of the Copperhead, along with the beer barrel oak handles. But they're just gorgeous. I really like the jigging pattern on these. I've heard it called pin feather because it resembles, the small new feathers on a bird. But yeah, this is just a really gorgeous knife, and it carries the pre-2020 shield. So in 2020, Boker started using a new shield with a larger simplified tree and black background that harkens back to one of their more historic logos and shields. But the Boker Copperhead is 3 3/4 inches long. It has 2 blades. They're both 2 3/4 inches long, so this makes it a little different than, say, a case Copperhead, which has a large blade and then a smaller pin blade. I like the Copperhead pattern because of the way the bolster raises up and hides that raw end of the blade tang. I always like that on a knife, whether that's done through an arrangement of the bolster or a partially or fully sunken joint. I also like these knives because each blade has its own blade well, and therefore you're not going to get a lot of blade rub like you might with a single layer canoe or something. Also, both of the blades open to the same end, and both have nail nicks on the same side. Why is that important? Well, once you get to know your knife, it just cuts down on a lot of fumbling. You always know that your blade's open to one end and the nail nicks are on the mark side. So these blades are a clip blade. And these blades, by the way, on these two models that I'm going to show you are 1075 carbon steel. I think Boker refers to that as C75. And they both have the reverse frost etch, which I like so much, that you only find on knives made entirely in Zolligan. Now this clip blade has a long nail pull. These knives came with really good edges. They're just really well made, very happy with them. Let's take a look at the Tang stamp. H. Boker & Co. Zolligan. And again, you won't find that stamp, Zolligan, stamped on the traditional series knives. And then the second blade in the front here is a long Skinner blade. Again, 2 3/4 inches long. It does not have any type of blade etch or Tang stamp. So that's the one in red bone, and the one in green bone is exactly like it. Same jigging pattern. It's not very green. It's a very dark color. Maybe in the sunlight you would get more hues of green, but I would kind of describe that as a seaweed green, kelp green or something, for lack of a better idea. But again, it's just a really well-made knife. They're well aligned, they're tight, they're snappy, the edges are good. It's just a beautiful knife. I've shown before my Copperhead in beer barrel oak. These were not a limited run or anything, but they're kind of interesting in that they use actual oak from German-made beer barrels. They've repurposed old German ale barrels. They've also done that with whiskey barrels and wine barrels on some of their other knives. And then I've shown this before too. I've had this for several years, but this is my Boker copper liner. It's like a copper lock in that it's a one-bladed locking copperhead, but they couldn't use copper lock. That's legally protected by Case. Case owns that term. But again, it's still got a thumb stud and a liner lock. Instead of having two blades, you get the liner in there. And instead of having a flat ground blade, it is a saber grind with just a partial blade edge. And I guess they did that so they would have a flat place to place this nickel silver thumb stud. This is a great knife. It's got smooth action and locks up well. My only complaint about it is because of its size, it's a little small for a one-hand opening knife. It's kind of hard sometimes to get the right position on it to work the thumb stud. Probably easier to use would be Boker's Trapper liner, which is the same concept on their Trapper. And I did notice that those are still in the 2021 US version of their catalog. So that's just been a look at the few Boker Copperheads that I own. I thought you might enjoy that. I appreciate you watching and appreciate your support. And as always, have fun collecting.